Hi, welcome into whatever time and space you're in. My name is Alyssa, and I am in an autumnal early evening. Um, but I live in a place where sometimes it's just gray. It kind of looks that way at all hours of the day. Having said that, I live in a farm. There's always all sorts of distractions, animals making noises, dogs, machinery, things like that. Etc. So on. And I'm sort of streaming from this yurt that I live in. So there's a degree of distraction sometimes that come up in creating these videos. I assume that we're all humans and that it gives us some sort of reciprocal context for one another, and that I am in the space that I live in, and I am teaching from a real pragmatic standpoint, and you're also in your own space. So having said that, I want to really liberate you towards what you already know, towards the information you already have about yourself. Paying attention and experimenting is your own prerogative. I really think that it's a good idea to do things as you like to do them, and every once in a while to do them differently, just to do them differently and learn through variety of practice and also over time. So I'll offer some postural things in this practice. We're flowing from pose to pose, but I'm also going to offer a couple of different options for postures. And often I sort of rattle off options, and I'll do a little bit of that still, but I'm also going to demonstrate sort of different families of postures and things that you could do in those times. And it isn't a one size fits all or even one size fits forever. It's sort of like a whole bunch of different pieces of language you could use to put together the context for your ritual, for your metaphysical practice of liberation. Remember that is what we're doing. We're practicing liberating ourselves from conditioned existence, or waking up, as it were. So, however you do it, remember that the intention is really what makes it what it is, more so than any sort of physical success, etc. So on. All right, today I'm going to offer that we begin with just one round of the seed sound of Om. It's a secular chant. It acknowledges the interconnection between all things. There's lots of good reasons not to Om or chant. You might need to be silent. There might be a child in the next room. It might just not feel comfortable or right for you. And it's always okay to remain silent and listen, or to be present and have a different point of view. Otherwise, you could fold your hands into any position that doesn't draw too much attention to them, unless there's a specific mood or gesture that you prefer. You can close your eyes or look down at one spot and take a moment to set your spine up tall, whether you're sitting or standing or lying down. Usually we're upright in some position for these things. Set yourself at relative neutral. To clear and prepare the channel of your body, take an inhale in through your nose. Now open your mouth to exhale, HA. Inhale, prepare to Om. And take a deep inhale in when you need one, and a slow exhale out through your nose, perhaps. And then if you're in a seat, you might make your way into a hands and knees position and head back onto this mat space I have set up. And if being in hands and knees is not for you, you could do this sitting in a chair, or sitting in a kneeling position, or sitting with your hips up on a prop. And think about what the spine is doing in these actions, and that's what we're trying to sort of replicate or find different versions of. So stack your shoulders over the center of your palms and your knees under the sockets of your hips. Cow-cat postures. Inhale, lift your chin and tail, cow pose. Breathing as you go. Exhale, cat, round your spine. You might start to find Ujjayi Pranayama, inhaling and exhaling. Breathing on purpose, trying to lengthen out your breath. Like when you pull air through a straw. We usually inhale to go out and up, opening the front seam. And exhale to go down and in, contracting the front seam. Continue. So if you were to do this from sitting your hips on your heels, you might put your hands on your knees and inhale to lift your chin and chest, and exhale to round. And just different versions of the same thing. Follow your breath. And even if you were sitting on a chair, you could find the same context, inhaling to lift the chin and chest, and exhaling to round. Inhaling. Lead with the sternum, the chest bone, and the tail, your sacrum or coccyx, the back of your pelvis, more so than your nose or your eyes or your chin. Let your head and neck come along for the ride. Add a few more of these from whatever perspective you're taking. And then we'll pause here and work for a sense of plank pose. Often plank becomes this very militaristic thing. It doesn't need to be that way. And in yoga, we just really call it Dandasana, or a form of staff pose. You could think of it also as like a board that floats in a raft in a river, that sense of buoyancy. So shift your shoulders over your wrists, and you might walk your knees back a little bit, the difference between tabletop and plank on your knees. And right away, so that your hips don't drop, you'll shorten the muscles in the front of your belly. You might tuck your tail a little so your tail sort of lifts up. But it's okay to keep your tail sticking out as long as you feel strong in the center of your body. Continue to pull your heart forward and move your shoulders wide and down away from your ears. Now you could also use this on your way through different vinyasas. We'll do some of those in a little bit. Know that anytime you're doing plank or side plank, you could always come down to this position. In fact, let's do side plank. Left hand is the base. Roll to the outside edge of your left knee. I had to take my left foot and sort of swing back, and I've rolled down to the blade of my right foot, or the sole of my right foot. Now, right away, the more you set your knee underneath your hip, the more that you give yourself a little permission to be stacked and balanced. But always lift your top leg up in this position and breathe here. Some folks like to do this from the forearm, especially if you have wrist issues. Same bit of business is happening in traction and compression through the bottom half of your torso there, the left side. Top hand could be on the hip. You're always welcome to do these versions of postures where instead of from that stacked knee position, you stack your top foot. Now, this pose has many versions. Sometimes the top leg up and over, foot on the ground gives us that support. Sometimes the support stability of the musculature is what we're seeking. Take another inhale. And on your exhale, come back through plank on the knees, right? So if you were in plank position with your knees lifted, right, knees coming down, just about the same distance, right? We don't change. That would be the difference between that and tabletop. All right, other side, right hand is the base. Roll to the outside edge of your right foot. And I swing my right foot and ankle back. You can take your top arm up and open. Now, in all of these forms of side plank, you could really be side body bending so you look like a rainbow in profile. You'd also be working towards more ergonomic armpit shapes, as it were. You're always welcome to come down onto your bottom forearm. Sometimes that asks more of our trunk muscles because there's less shoulder muscle to do for us there. And again, you could always lift the top leg or choose to balance on the feet. And you can always combine these different versions of things, experiment with what feels stable, and know that these postures are often difficult as they are. Some of you will take variations with the top leg that are to create different shapes almost entirely. Feel free to experiment. Let's come back to plank position and put your knees on the ground. Take a big free inhale. And your exhale, let's go to down dog. So curl your toes under, lift your knees and hips up and back. A lot of you will have a context for down dog, and you can begin to move your dog around. But if you don't have a context, consider hands about shoulder distance, feet about hips distance away from one another. Hang your head. For a lot of us, we feel a stretch in our hamstrings and hips, and that's what stops us from shifting weight back into the feet. So you might lift your heels up, bend your knees, and stick your tail up so you can shift that weight back. Hopefully, eventually extending through your spine. Hang your head. Extend through your shoulders like you're trying to push the mat forward and away from underneath you. Good. Take an inhale, look forward. And your exhale, step your feet up to your hands. Notice if you're still breathing. We'll hang in forward fold. In forward fold, you might bend your knees. You might have your feet hips distance or together. There's a lot of different forms of Uttanasana, or the extending from the center posture. One of the major suggestions I'll make if you have trouble folding forward without feeling like your balance shifts, sitting on the edge of something has a very similar effect. And if you have the ability, you can find support for your head, and sometimes that makes those sensations go away. All right. Halfway lift. Inhale, unroll your heart, almost like a backward bend. You can bend your knees and stick your tail out, pull your heart forward, your tail back. You might bring your hands up to your shins or thighs. Exhale, forward fold. Cool, let's do that again. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, forward fold. Good, inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold. And round up slowly to standing. Keep your knees bent so that you can roll up your spine without too much effort in your hamstrings. Let your head be the last thing to lift. When you get to the top, you might use a few breaths to roll your shoulders down your back. Stand in relative neutrality. Feel the bottom of your pelvis press down and the top of your skull press up, equal and opposite away from one another. As you do that, you might tuck your chin a little and notice that the center of your chest rises too. The bottom of your heels goes down. Samasthiti, equilibrium posture, same on all sides, standing pose. You can really practice it any time. You're sitting on a chair, you can sit up in your equilibrium along the length of your spinal curves and sense that you're shifting from front to back and left to right along the bottom of your pelvis. Here you're doing it along mostly your ankles is how we feel at first, along the soles of our feet, shifting front to back, left to right around our central orbit. You can do it with your feet together, your feet an inch apart, your feet hips distance or a little wider. Some of us will need to softly bend the knees a little bit so that we don't overuse the legs or lock the knees. You might have to roll your shoulders back a little or tuck your chin a little. You might close your eyes so you can let your inner ear do its work. All right, Urdhva Hastasana, the arms up pose. I'm going to take a little step back so I can show. Arms up pose. Classically, we inhale your arms out and up, reaching upward. You might gaze up. You might press your palms if your neck and shoulders allow. And exhale, come back to Samasthiti. Let your arms come down by your sides. Cool, that's one way to do it. Another way to do it is inhale to take your arms up. Bring your hands shoulder distance. And keep your gaze more forward as you extend upward from the center. And exhale to bring your arms down by your sides. And then a third alternative that often doesn't come up is to add backward bending. To inhale to reach up, gaze up, and lean back if it's your thing. And some combination of all those things. We'll exhale to forward fold, hinge at your hips, bend your knees if you wish on the way down. Inhale, halfway lift, unroll your heart. Exhale, fold, put your hands down. Step back to plank pose. Again, Dandasana, the staff posture, or plank on the knees. Take an inhale. And on your exhale, you could try lowering down through chest and chin. It's hard to make them hit. You might have to widen your hands out further. You might feel kind of like a face plant or a little slippery or slidey. Once you're down there, let yourself slide forward. Inhale to Cobra Bhujangasana. Keep your hips down and lift your heart up using back strength. Exhale, lengthen your upper body down. So we often do these little back strengthening cobras. Let's do two more. Inhale, peel your heart up. Minimum weight in the hands are just supportive weight to pull you. Exhale, bring your upper body down. Legs are usually hips distance or closer in these versions. Inhale, peel your heart up or squeezing the midline from a wider point. Exhale, bring your upper body down. Now for Cobra, we're not going to go too carried away, but you might also choose to put weight in your hands and inhale to pick yourself up, different than up dog because my legs and hips are still down and could be pressing the earth as opposed to floating in the air. You could also do just anywhere in between on height. Exhale to bring your upper body down. Curl your toes under from knees or toes. Inhale, press back up. Exhale towards downward facing dog pose. Breathe in and out through your nose. Well, feel free at any point to stop the video and try options. I sort of run through them in this way. You could feel them out right away and notice what you gravitate towards. Move in those directions or take the time to repeat one for a while. Take an inhale to bend your knees, lift your gaze forward, and exhale to step or lightly float your feet up towards your hands. Inhale, halfway lift, unroll your heart. Exhale, forward fold. We're going to go all the way to Urdhva Hastasana this time. Inhale your arms out to the sides, or you could go forward. Some people like that, all the way up to standing. Arms up pose, reaching up. And exhale, your arms by your sides. Samastitihi, same neutral standing pose. Again, inhale Urdhva Hastasana in your own way, forward or out, up overhead, reaching upward. Exhale, forward fold. Dive down, breathing out through your nose if it's available. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold. Plant your hands, step back. Lower all the way to the earth. Tops of your feet down. Inhale, Cobra Bhujangasana. Exhale. Your upper body down. Curl your toes, your knees or toes. Inhale back up through plank on the knees. Exhale to downward facing dog pose. Now these are little sun salutations. I've seen them done from a seated position, from hands and knees. You could omit the going back and down onto the floor and just do the standing portions. A lot of ways to be creative. Creating a cycle is partially the intent here. Cycle your breath through a series of actions. Your next exhale, step or float forward, arrive on your feet. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale all the way up, Urdhva Hastasana, reach upward. Exhale, Samasthiti. These are by no means all of the options or ways to do these ideas. If you're sort of like, I always do it this way and I know what way I do it, I encourage you to almost arbitrarily pick a different way and see what it does to take a different path through that trajectory. Inhale your arms up, reaching out or forward up overhead. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, hands down, step back, plank pose. Remember, you could come to table and take cow and cat. Lower halfway, Chaturanga Dandasana. This is often what's taught as the primary action here. Inhale, upward dog, tops of your feet down. Pull your heart through your arms. My legs are floating up off the earth. Exhale, downward facing dog pose. Turn your feet over. Tail high, heels low, breathe. Now here in down dog, remember table is an alternative or a seat. You could also alternate to putting your forearms on the ground like this, often called Dolphin Dog. And remember to pull your elbows down into the ground, to roll the inner bones of your forearms and thumbs down. And over time, if your elbows get real wide in this shape, you might reset them. Eventually, we sort of teach the hands and the elbows to be at shoulder distance together. And then return to a neutral point of view and exhale. Step forward to the top of your mat or float forward. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale your arms out and up. Urdhva Hastasana, the arms up pose. Exhale, Samasthiti. And inhale your arms up. Exhale, fold. Inhale, unroll halfway. Exhale, step your feet back. Chaturanga of your choice. Inhale, upward dog or perhaps cobra. Exhale, downward facing dog pose. Now, other alternatives to downward dog pose include using furniture around you. It's actually why your house might be better than the yoga studio in a certain way. Press into a wall or a table or a low stool. Sometimes we can get a little more space with that height and lift. Same thing can happen when you put your hands up on blocks. If you have alternatives around, give them a try. You can always try the same types of exercises and actions that we take in the down dog. Remember, we ask new things of musculature. They also might have new things to say to us. You can always shorten the length of your dog from hands to feet, make it more like a forward fold. Or lengthen it out, especially if your heels are already on the ground. Take more space between your hands and your feet so that there's work towards your heels getting to the earth. In your next exhale, step or float forward and land on your feet. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, arms up pose. Exhale, samasthiti. Move through sun B where we do lunges and squats. And I'll give different options throughout. But we'll start a little bit of basic ergonomics. So we start with a fierce pose, Utkatasana. It's a squat. Bend your knees, sink your hips, classically feet and legs together. It's a back bend. So as you rock your weight back into your heels so that your knees aren't taking the brunt of your body weight, use your back muscles and your middle back to upright your upper body. Your arms could go out, forward, or up overhead. Your hands could be shoulder distance. You could bring your hands together in any shape. Mostly, we're sticking the tail out, rocking the weight back and down. There's something to reach our chest bone or sternum forward and up away from. And take another big free inhale. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, chaturanga of your choice. Inhale, up dog or an alternative. Exhale, down dog. And still exhaling, step your right foot forward for a warrior pose. So these are lunging postures. I'm going to start by putting my back knee down. Now you could do this with your back toes curled under. If your back knee feels tender, you can use a blanket or fold over your yoga mat. You might rise up just by pushing your feet and leg into the ground, but also climb up your available knee. You take your arms forward or out and up overhead. And again, your hands could be shoulder distance, just like Urdhva Hastasana. Your hands could be close, your palms could be pressed. There's 1,000 points and mudras in between, hooking your thumbs, etc. But also always choose to interweave your fingers at the base of your neck and lift your elbows up in these actions. This would be a low lunge. Usually we think of this as some sort of Chandrasana, moon pose, low lunging action. Take another inhale. And exhale your hands down. And step back. Take a chaturanga or skip it and head to down dog. Inhale, upward dog pose. Exhale, downward dog pose. And still exhaling, step your left foot forward. Now, you can grab it and draw it up. A lot of us will do that. You can drop your back knee down. Again, repeating on the same business as on the last side. You can climb up or take your arms out and up. Take an inhale to reach up. And again, we'll take a couple breaths because we took some time to establish it on the opposite side. Sometimes widening from right to left, your legs is helpful. Some of us will have to really tuck the tail and squeeze the back butt cheek to feel stable. It's okay to feel a little altery and waltery side to side. Let's see if you can consider how you become stable from the ground up by pressing down into gravity. Take another in breath and exhale, hands down. Step your left foot back, move through a vinyasa. Inhaling to upward dog or an alternative. Exhaling to downward dog. Take a couple of breaths in down dog. Maybe you're experimenting with a new or different down dog. You might also choose, you're very open in the front of your ribs, back bending, something that comes with ease in your body. Using your serratus anterior muscles along the sides of your ribs, sort of close the front wings a little bit. Wrap your armpits, shoulder blades around the outside edge of your armpits, and see if that shifts more weight back into your feet. Exhale, step or float forward, arrive on your feet. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold. Bend your knees, sink your hips. Inhale, fierce pose, Utkatasana, this squatting action. Still inhaling, stand up. Exhale, Samasthitihi. All right. Also do wide feet in Utkatasana. So take a big free inhale. Exhale, bend your knees and sink your hips. Inhale your arms out, forward, or up overhead. Stick your tail out. You can even turn your toes and knees a little out if it feels okay. Exhale, forward fold, dive down. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold. Chaturanga Dandasana. Inhale, upward dog. Exhale, downward dog. And this time, we'll add an addition. Inhale your right leg up and back, one-footed dog. And exhale, step your right foot forward. Maybe grab it and draw it up. And this time, we're going to keep the lunge, all 10 toes face forward, high on the ball of your back foot, as opposed to dropping it back and down. Rise up and climb up on your knee thigh. Settle down into your front heel without grabbing with your toes into the mat. And again, as you draw your navel back and your floor of pelvis up, we'll have to work a little harder to straighten the back leg. Inhale to reach your arms up. You might choose even to go back to create backward bending in an action like this. Drive your thigh bones towards the sockets of your hips. Take another in-breath. Exhale, Chaturanga Dandasana. Step your right foot back. Again, you can always skip these. Inhale, upward dog. Exhale, downward dog. Or change them as you like. Inhale your left leg up. And exhale, step your left foot through. High on the ball of your back foot. Feet about hips distance from right to left. Inhale to rise up. High lunge or crescent lunge. Again, another moon pose. Take a few breaths to orient yourself and to settle down in your front heel. Really strong in your back leg, high on the ball of your foot. Next exhale, Chaturanga Dandasana. Step your left foot back. Inhale, upward dog. Exhale, downward dog. Take a big deep inhale in through your nose. Open your mouth to exhale, HA. Inhale in through your nose. Exhale out through your nose. Take an inhale to look forward. Exhale, step or float. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold and bend your knees. Inhale, fierce pose, Utkatasana. Still inhaling, stand up. Exhale, Samasthitihi. All right, Utkatasana can also be done with your body quite low to your legs. So you might bend your knees, sink your hips, and almost like halfway lift, come low. And see if you can get to the point where you have to use your middle back to peel your front body forward, stick your tail out. So in this case, you might reach your arms more along the trajectory of your ears, maybe even straight forward with your belly laying on your thighs. Keep rocking your weight back and take a couple of breaths to notice how this one is different. And also try sinking your hips lower and finding other forms of squatting. Remember, the length of your Achilles tendons will limit you or gift you more space depending on your anatomy. Let's exhale to fold forward. Good. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, Chaturanga Dandasana. Inhale, upward dog. Exhale, downward dog. Still exhaling, step your right foot forward. This time I'm going to do warrior one. See my back foot? We had it high on the ball of the foot last time. This time I'm going to spin my heel down. Now, of course, that'll limit how much I can keep my front knee bent, so I might widen from right to left or take a shorter stance from front to back in this pose. Inhale to rise up. Now this posture, my back leg and hip are way behind me, right? Striking my heel down turns my pelvis, so the left hip is behind the right. So instead of trying to square my hips, turn at your waist, and a turn using my right side abdominals and obliques to bring my front body forward even as my pelvis isn't. And draw your tail down and your navel in. You might twist and back bend. You might twist and limit back bending by drawing the navel back. Take an inhale, reach your arms up. Maybe gaze up if you like. Exhale, Chaturanga Dandasana. Inhale, up dog. Exhale, down dog, and still exhaling, step your left foot forward. Spin your back heel in and down. And this foot can be turned out from your thigh bone, turn more in. The more it's turned out, the more your right hip will be behind you, and the more likely we are to twist the inside of the knee. So just notice. Inhale to rise up in your own way. Again, twisting your spine. And exhale when you're ready. Chaturanga Dandasana. Inhale, upward dog. And exhale, downward dog. You can always alternate into child's pose if the fold in your knees feels good for you. It won't for everyone. All right. Your next exhale, step or float forward, arrive on your feet. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, forward fold. Utkatasana, fierce pose of your choice. Still inhaling, stand all the way up. And exhale, neutral pose, sama sthiti. All right, I'm going to do a little work in some standing postures. I'll just go through them in repeated series. Do different versions as we go. Inhale, Urdhva Hastasana, arms up. Exhale, forward fold, dive down. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold. And step your left foot back into a long, low lunge. Good. And we're going to do warrior two. So you can drop your back knee down, take your back foot and turn on the axis of your knee, and rise up so you're facing out to the left a little bit. You know, put your hands on your hips here, take your arms out to a T shape. You could play around with how sort of wide your front foot is away from your back leg, how turned in or out your back thigh bone is. Gaze out over your front fingertips. Warrior two is this basis for a lot of other postures, and we'll do two more here. The reverse warrior, inhale, up and back, sometimes called peaceful warrior, a side body bend for most of us. Stay low in your front hips so you can side bend away from that deep point. And exhale to side angle. So in this posture, you might bring your elbow to your knee and your right arm up. You might find there's some room to come down on the inside edge of your foot. You stack a block underneath this bottom hand. Give yourself more lift. Cool. Let's inhale back up through warrior two. Exhale your hands to the earth. Spin your right foot back. Lift your back knee up. Inhale, look forward. With one or many steps, exhale, step up to the top of your mat and fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold and step your right foot back. So now the left foot is forward. Drop your back knee down. And again, you turn the foot out. So I'm going to turn away from you so it won't face you anymore, but you saw it on the other side. And things might be different from side to side. Always think about what feels stable for you. Sometimes it's even just something as silly as like my skin feels like it pinches on the mat and I need padding or something to change. And that's like totally fine. Like take the time to do the thing. All right, and you could take your arms out like a T shape. There's alternatives in the arms too. You could flip your palms up, your biceps up from your shoulders. You could think about reaching the tips of your fingertips away from one another. Some people will also bend their elbows and put fingertips on shoulders. Reach your elbows away, especially if things become very shouldery. Let's inhale to reverse the warrior. Now I slide my hand to my back shin. So you can put it on the ground. Stay low in your front hip. So you have something to stretch up and away from through the bottom of your right rib cage. And take an inhale. We'll exhale to side angle pose. Right, this is one of our first versions. You could bring your right elbow to your knee, your left elbow to your knee and your right arm up. You could come down low on the inside of your front foot. You could always put that bottom hand up on a prop. Remember to breathe deeply in whatever you do. And in any of these postures, you're welcome to hang your head and let traction happen. Often the classic drishti or gaze point is looking up or towards your front thumb. Inhale back up to the warrior two form of the shape. And exhale your hands down. Good. Right your back foot, curl your back toes. This time, step back to plank pose. Inhale. Exhale, vinyasa of your own form. Almost like a palate cleanser. Inhale through upward dog or cobra. Exhale back to downward facing dog pose. Take a deep inhale in through your nose. Open mouth, exhale, HA. Inhale through your nose. Ujjayi, exhale out through your nose. The upward liberating breath. Take an inhale, bend your knees, look forward. Exhale, step or lightly float forward. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, forward fold. Soften your knees and step your left foot back. Second form of warrior two, you might spin your back heel down and inhale to rise up over two legs. Good. Now you can do this with support every once in a while. I will see also someone making a decision to stand up on a prop and see how that changes things for them. This might be a third way to do the thing. And give yourself permission to consider how close or far away your 2 feet are from one another and how much turned out your front right thigh bone is versus turned in or out your back thigh bone is, so that you can strike your heel into the ground. All right, we'll do those same actions. Inhale to reverse your warrior up and back. Minimal load bearing in that back hand. Take another inhale and exhale to side angle. So again, this is a little different, elbow to the knee. What often happens is everyone shifts their weight back and lifts their hips up, as then you're kind of forward folding. If you've got a strong hamstring, it'll hold you up. If you can sink your hips low and use your side body, your obliques to turn and twist. The angle from your heart to your back heel or through the roof of your mouth, crown of your head. You take your top arm up or over your ear. Some folks will feel that they can slide their arm down on the inside. And they can work their arm inside or outside of that front right leg. Okay, let's take an inhale up to warrior two. And exhale your hands down to frame your right foot. Spin your back heel up. Inhale, look forward. Exhale with one or many steps. Step forward and fold. Good. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale. Fold and step your right foot way back. So your left foot is forward. Spin your back heel down. And inhale up to warrior two. Warrior is really a short word for saying Virabhadrasana, which is the Sanskrit or original name, which means noble hero, named for a particular story about the warrior defending the princess at a party. Set low into your front hip. Think about letting your front inner thigh turn up and out. But not so much you feel pressure in your knee, and enough that you have some space in the front of your hip. And again, your back foot angle is debatable. I suggest trying them all out, but make sure your inner knee feels good. Inhale to reverse your warrior, out, up, and back. And take a couple of breaths to set low into your left hip. Good. Exhale into side angle posture. You could bring your left elbow to your left knee. Take your right arm up or over. Some people bring binding into these postures. Perhaps if you've done that before in other contexts, you could full bind, or you could half bind your top arm. Bottom arm could be inside or outside of your leg. Try to support yourself in a standing posture, less with your arms and more with your legs as you can. Inhale, warrior two. Exhale your hands to the mat, spin your right heel up. Inhale, look forward. Exhale with one or many steps, step up to forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, forward fold. Now here's a few other forward folds. Grab opposite elbow with opposite hand and dangle. You could interweave your fingers behind your tail, let your wrists come forward and down. You could also do this holding something between your hands, like a sock or a strap. My knees are bent, but you could always work them towards straight, or they could be more bent. You could sit in a chair as before. You can also interweave your hands at the nape of your neck. All right. Good. Inhale to halfway lift. Exhale. Take a vinyasa of your choosing. Hands down, step back, or halfway or all the way. Inhale, upward dog or an alternative. Exhale, downward dog or an alternative. Good. Inhale to take your right leg up and back. One-footed dog. Exhale, scorpion the dog. Open your hip, bend your knee like you could reach for your left ear with your right toes. Inhale, straighten and extend your right leg up and back. Exhale, step your right foot forward between your hands. Take your back foot and step it forward about 1.5 feet. We're going to try out a little bit of pyramid pose or side body extension posture. So you can be high on the ball of your back foot if you wish. This is one way to do it. Parallel your feet and fold over your front leg. But also do this. Some people have the Achilles tendon space to put their back heel down and parallel. You might also choose to turn your back toes out, your back heel in, widen your front foot and back foot away from one another, and bend your knees a lot. Hang your upper body, straightening your legs by pressing your feet into the ground. You're welcome to give your leg a hug and to take any arm variation that you like or know. All right, I'm going to turn around to face you a little bit. Let's do triangle pose from here. So release your hands and inhale, unroll like a halfway lift. And on your exhale, take your right hand and climb up on your right shin. Bring your left hand to your left hip and twist your left shoulder open. So you can do this posture with your feet pretty close. You can also do it with your feet pretty far away. The far away version, usually side bending over the body and really sticking the tail out as we go. That we're working, stretching this top seam of the body. In the shorter stance, we're doing a twist. You're rolling your back left hip forward and down, and rotating the shoulder up and open in the opposite direction. Both of your thighs are turning out a little different directions. Minimum load bearing in that bottom hand. You can always walk it up higher to get yourself more space. And since we're here, let's revolve this pose. So bring your left hand to where your right hand is. If you're up high, stay up high. And inhale to twist to the right. Bring your right hand to your right hip. Now you might find that you need to step your back foot out or change the angle. You want to still think that this hip is behind. Left hip is behind the right hip. Twisting, lift your left hip up even as you turn to the right. And you might take your right arm out or up. Now, some people lift their back heel to prioritize the upper body turning. I suggest from time to time you keep your back heel anchored, even if it doesn't seem like you can turn your upper body much at all. Good. Exhale. Fold over your front leg, bend your right knee, slide your left heel back, step your right foot back, Chaturanga Dandasana. Inhale, upward dog. Exhale, downward dog. And inhale your left leg up and back this time. Exhale, open your hip and bend your knees, scorpion out your dog. Just a different way to do it. Inhale, straighten and extend your left leg high, and exhale, step it forward. Step your back foot in, spin your back heel down or not. Inhale, unroll your heart. Exhale, folding to whatever form of Parsvottanasana, side extension, extending the side of the body, the right side in this circumstance, as we bring the body towards the left leg. Inhale, unroll your heart, and exhale, release any grip in the hands. Your left hand down, right hand to your right hip, triangle pose. You might adjust your feet a little bit. And always work with bent knees, especially as you draw a little bit of actin or rigidity into your legs so that you can turn your upper body on a stable axis. Roll your right hip down and your right shoulder up, or choose a different variation or variety. Let's revolve it. Exhale. Bring your right hand down and twist to the left. Keep shifting weight back into your back foot. Take a little bit shorter, more turned out step myself. As you twist to the left, try to keep twisting your upper body back into stability, and so that you're wringing yourself out from both ends. Breathe, and if you can't breathe, back off the depth a little bit. Find some ease again. Good. Exhale to release both hands down. Bend your left knee. Send your right foot back. Step your left foot back. Chaturanga on an exhale. Inhale, upward dog or an alternative. Exhale. Downward facing dog pose. All right, we didn't do the revolved lunge, so we're going to do that and use it to take us into some hip stretching on the floor. Inhale, take your right leg up and back. Exhale, open your hip and bend your knee. Inhale, straighten and extend. Exhale, step your right foot forward between your hands. I'm going to turn a little to face you. So you can have your right foot parallel with your right hip, as it were, or you can walk your right foot wider and bring both hands to the inside of the right leg. You can stay here. Take your right arm up. You're welcome to twist. Grab for your back foot. Show it from the front on the opposite side, taking that quad stretch if you like. Good, or exhale, two hands down to the inside. We'll come to Quinasana, lizard lunging. So I like to turn my foot way out. There are other people who really like to hug it in, so I suggest experimenting with both. Also down on my back knee, but you might curl your toes under and lift your back heel, or even put a couple of props stacked up underneath the sort of front of your left thigh hip. And stay on the hands or come to the forearms. You're welcome to curl underneath and behind your right leg. Good. And climb back up and out of that position. And we're going to try to revolve our side angle a little bit. So you might scoot your legs a little closer from front to back and climb up on your front knee thigh. And wrap yourself around your right leg with your left arm as much as you can. Well, it's okay to bring your body and your leg together very close. You press your palms together in prayer. You'd always lift your back knee in this shape too. Even spin your back heel down. That's classical if your back knee is down for it. Some folks will bind in this shape as well. For a lot of us, it's a lot of compression. Good. And exhale to unwind. Come down on the inside of your right foot. Pardon my flipping around. Curl your back toes under and lift your back knee. And turn your feet into a wide-footed forward fold. Just going to do really one version of this posture. Hands under your shoulders. Inhale. Exhale, fold. You can hang or push the earth away, tripod headstand style. Inhale, unroll like a halfway lift. Exhale your hands to your hips and inhale, stand all the way up. In your exhale, turn your heels in, your toes out, a goddess pose, sometimes called horse stance in other forms of martial arts. Sink your hips low. And some people's toes will be more turned in or out. This is another form of Utkatasana. Some people call it Kali, right? The warrior goddess. Sink your hips low. Lift your heart up. You take your arms out or up. Some people bend their elbows and turn their palms forward. And there's lots of versions of this pose. We'll stay for a few breaths. Lift your heels up. Some people lift their toes up and shift from side to side. Some people take it all the way down into Skandasanas. Good. Next inhale, straighten your legs, turn your toes to parallel, and exhale to fold. Walk yourself over to your right foot, find that low lunge. Inhale to plank. Exhale, Chaturanga of your choice. Inhaling through upward dog or an alternative. Exhale back to downward dog. As you're ready, inhale to take your left leg up and back. Exhale, open your hip and bend your knee. Inhale, straighten and reach. And exhale, step your foot forward and through. And drop your back knee down. And you can turn your left toes out to the left. Inhale, take your left arm up, twisting to the left. And again, You might bend for your back knee. Sometimes just reach for the pant leg or the ankle. Sometimes we grab the foot. And exhaling to come back into center for lizard lunging. You can stay on your hands or come to your forearms and tuck yourself behind your left leg, threading your left arm underneath, maybe your left shoulder, maybe your head behind your knee. All right, press it up. And walk your leg in a little. And try coming to the revolved version of side angle, curling your right arm around your left leg. Maybe one day your shoulder to your outer knee. There's a lot of compression. Any variation you wish. You might do the same thing you did on the previous side. Might be a different choice here. Good. Ooh, use an exhale to unwind. And curl your back toes under, lift your back knee up. Inhale, step back. Exhale, Chaturanga or an alternative. Inhale, Upward Dog. Exhale, Downward Facing Dog Pose. Still exhaling, come through to a seat. Of course, there are so many postures. We have to do many of these classes this way to get through all of them. It's just some of the standing postures you see pretty regularly in Vinyasa classes. This is a forward fold. So for a pose like this, you might even roll up your mat or sit up on the edge of something. Just like if you ever sang in a choir in school, you have these bones at the bottom back of your pelvis that kind of function like heels. And to make your pelvic bowl have an arch at the bottom floor of it, like an upward floating parachute, it can be helpful to take those heels and kind of pull them back, tilt your pelvis forward. If your pelvis was full of cookie batter, you'd be dumping it forward onto your legs. And you can do this with your knees bent. Similarly, you can put support underneath or let them just stay bent depending on how bent they are and how you feel about them. You can stay upright or fold forward over your legs. Now, if you're very flexible and you don't feel much stretch, it might be that your tendons are quite open and the muscles of your legs don't get much from you. In that case, you might roll up a small towel or take even your hands and put them in the nooches or wrists behind your knees. So that as you fold forward, your hamstrings have to do more than the tendons. And also support your head, hands or arms. You can be active in your legs, flexing your ankles, or passive, depending on your intention. If you're striving with your upper body, please be active with your lower body. Good. And there's 3 basic seated forward fold poses that you see. There's many more, but these are the 3 basic ones. And that's the first one, Paschimottanasana, the forward fold or the west stretch, stretching the west or back side of the body. The second is Badakanasana, or some people call it butterfly. It means bound angle pose. And you could put props underneath your knees. I'll do it just on one side, just to show, like this, underneath your knee. You do it underneath both, and that can give a lot of support, especially if it gets very tight or you feel tugging. And also take your feet and slide them further forward away from you, and sometimes that changes and helps the shape. Again, staying upright is sometimes the first way to go. If you're folding forward, you can do so with an extended spine, aiming your navel over your heels, or you can round your spine, actively draw your navel back and your forehead towards your toes. And also split the difference. fold passively forward and down. And roll yourself up. Walk your hands in, drag your head. Last one is the wide angle pose, Quinasana. Your legs be just as wide as legs happen to be. And again, upright your pelvis. You might bring your hands behind you and use them to help you lift your chest up and breathe here. You might slide forward and down over this shape as well. You can be active or passive. Some people like to roll their toes down and come into the Samukonasana. Some people like to keep their toes up. Upavishta Konasana, the extended angle pose. And slowly drag your head in and roll yourself up. And often at this point, there's some kind of core warming or strengthening. You've already done a great deal of it on hands and knees, drawing your navel back in standing positions, etc., so on, even if it doesn't seem so or that way. Often we do a boat pose. And here's a couple of ways you could boat pose. You could bring your forearms down, your feet up. The more you bring your knees away from you, the more the center body will work. You could do this with your spine back bent or with your tail tucked. You can also bring this up. You can use your hands to support the backs of your legs or you on the ground. Some people take their legs straight and their arms up. But also choose alternatives like coming all the way down onto your lower back for support and just lowering your legs away from your body as far as it takes. You're going to feel the center of your body working. Whichever one feels of most use, you could try out a couple. Stay for 5 breaths, counting it out. Try to let your shoulders and neck do less where you can. That's the center of your body to take play. Good. Slowly cross your ankles and come forward onto your hands. Step your feet back for Chaturanga Vinyasa, this high to low, up dog to down dog business. Or you could go straight back to down dog or tabletop. And we'll do a couple of back bends. There are, of course, many more. I'm going to go over, I think 4 or 5 backward bends. The first one, come forward and down onto your front body, tops of your feet down. We've already done Cobra Pose, and I would suggest that Sphinx, coming up to your elbows, forearms, might be even more effective, especially if you want to stay for time. You could set a timer, 4 or 5 minutes, even longer perhaps, depending on your practice. And stay here, taking a passive compression or pressure into your lower back on purpose. You could take the Cobra Pose with action as you did earlier. That's another option from the belly down. Or if you'd like, it feels open, you could take bow pose, down your asana, bending your knees and grabbing your feet and inhaling to kick your way up. These back bends counteracting the strengthening you did in the front body. And when you're ready, use an exhale to lower yourself down. And some people like to twist their hips from side to side or drop their knees from side to side to release the lower back. Press up, just standing on your knees. This is our third back bend here, Camel Pose. You can bring your knees and feet hips distance or even wider, as long as you feel a little contraction in and up. Right? It's not so important that they be close, so it can change things, how close or wide your legs are. Bring your hands onto your lower back, pinkies in, thumbs out, or thumbs and fingers out and wrists in. Use an inhale to lift your heart and exhale, press your hips forward. If your neck allows, hang your head back. And also do it with your chin tucked and your elbows pulling towards one another. I teach a baby version of this pose, which is just a slightly different version with hips on heels or sitting on a chair. Interview your fingers to the nape of your neck and lift your elbows up, puff out your chest. Draw your navel back and the floor of your pelvis up. Good. If you're up in your camel pose, and you can see down behind you. You might reach for your heels, one hand at a time, fingers in, thumbs out. And slowly, if your hands are on your heels, return them to your hips. Drag your head after your heart as you rise up. You can sit your hips on your heels. Breathe. Drop your chin to your chest. And also sit your hips between your heels and stretch your quads. Third option might be child's pose. Bring your knees hips distance or wider, your toes together. Fold forward and down. Put your head on a block or stacked hands or the earth. And slowly drag your head as you rise up to sitting. Take your hips off to one side. Bring your legs out in front. And last two back bends are offered from lying on the back, and we're working towards a final rest. So know that if you need to grab a sweater or something simple, you might do that, but there will be plenty of time to set yourself up well for what you need. So if you're rolling down onto your back, take the time, right? You might even do a couple of tilting your pelvis back and forth. Think about rolling on those sitting bones, like when you see a rocking horse or a rocking chair shift from side to side. Body is made of arches and spirals, much more right angles or pointy edges. And the next time your tail goes under, keep on tucking your tail and round down. Try to go as slow as you can. Another counter action through the body. We'll do the bridge pose. So for bridge pose, bend your knees, bring the soles of your feet onto the mat. This is another option back bend. You might do a bunch of back bends or just pick one of these things for yourself to counteract, sort of give your body full range of motion at the end of your practice. For this posture, I'll teach two different versions. One is supported. You can use your exhale to press your low back down. Inhale to lift your hips up. Good, squeezing your glutes, your hamstrings, and using your back muscles to lift yourself up into a little archy bridge. You can roll your shoulders together underneath you. There's a supported form. I'm using a block here. You can set it at the low setting or the mid setting with your hip on it. I happen to have long legs in the range of motion. I tend to set it on the high setting or stack two blocks. You could hang out there as long as you like. There's this gentle inversion of your head and your heart below your hips. Kind of like a supported shoulder stand. Do your best not to look from right to left. You could also choose an unsupported form or go back and forth between the two. Some people interweave their fingers, puff the chest out towards the chin. Try not to press the back of your head into the ground. Instead, press the back of your shoulders and upper arms. You would take this into the upward facing bow. Some people call it wheel. This posture, you bring your hands by your ears, fingers point down, thumbs point in, and inhale to press your upper body up. Now a pose like this can be difficult just coming in and out of it. Sometimes if you set up props, blocks for your hands, it can be easier to come up. So I'm going to come down, show you that. So if I have two blocks here, and I'm pushing them right here against the edge of this heavy bed, and I were to put my hands on the edge of these blocks instead of on the ground with my head between the blocks, I might be able to inhale and come up. It forces a less harsh curve into my upper body. Now I'm here by the bed, so I'm just going to show you that you can do this up on a bed too. Sometimes this puts more effort into the lower body. And there's an opposite thing to try, which is the other way around. Your feet on the props. Or your feet up on a trusted cushion or bed. Now, you might ask a friend or family member to spot you in and out of these things if you're not super used to being upside down, which I have many hours of doing. And also thought a little bit about these things before showing them to you. going to be a little bit of coordination. Don't let that stop you from giving it a go. If you're still up in bridge or wheel and haven't come down yet, come on down and roll yourself onto the earth. And then drop your knees from side to side. This is how loosen the lower back and gather your knees into your chest. Give yourself a good squeeze. You're always welcome to rest on your back or roll onto one side. You might put a prop or a pillow between your knees on one side or the other. Some people like to lay on their stomach. Similarly, you might just alternate which ear you do on the earth from practice to practice. You're also welcome to go to a safe pose, maybe a forward fold or something that doesn't take much effort and you can stay supported in. Maybe a yin posture or restorative pose with props. You're always welcome to lie down or sit down on a comfortable piece of furniture, etc. And often we do long held twists, and you are welcome to do that after this backward bending, dropping your knees all the way to the left for a few breaths, or maybe your right knee over and your left leg long. And there's different versions of that too. Knees together, legs wrapped in eagle pose. Come back through center and go to the opposite side. I'm going to come up and over my microphone. You don't need to look to the left. Your left shoulder might float. Your knees might float. You can always put props underneath to bridge the gap. The range of motion does not the successful yogi make. And come back through center. Squeeze your knees into your chest. As always, you can pause the video. If there's other finishing postures or inversions, etc. that you want to take here, feel free to do them. We did a lot of backward bending, so if you don't quite feel stable yet, you might draw your navel down towards your spine, press the small of your back down. And as you press your tail down, keep pulling your knees into your chest, stretching out your lower back, strengthening your abdominal muscles at the center. When you're ready, find a final resting shape. You'll take your legs long. Some people like to bring their knees up over something or over the edge of a chair. Take your legs up a real or imaginary wall. You bring your hands onto your belly or your heart, or take your arms down by your sides with your palms up. This pose for many years was challenging to me. I didn't feel very comfortable lying on my back. I didn't find myself necessarily being restful or at ease. You might start by changing the position if you need to create that ease. But also know that sometimes your body needs to get used to the idea of being easeful. So if you start to notice all the distractions coming up and you want to go take action or do something, you can make the commitment just for the next few minutes to not do anything. Please do. We'll rest for a few minutes and I'll call you up and out when it's time to change or return to action. If you know you need more than a few minutes to rest, you might go ahead and turn your video off. And join back up with us some other time. Take your own slow exit out. If you know you need less than a few minutes, similarly, you might arbitrate that on your own. Otherwise, you can look at one spot or close your eyes. Let go of your Ujjayi breath, that upward liberating breath, that slight snoring, and let your natural involuntary breath mechanism take over, even if at first it's a little bit held or choppy. Eventually, it will regulate itself. I'll call you out when the time comes. Until then, pay attention to how things really are. You're lying in rest or sitting in meditation and wish to remain, do. If the time has come to return, slowly go to your breath and ask it to deepen and rise a little till you can draw yourself as slowly and kindly back towards waking awareness as possible. And as you slowly create movement in your body, if you're lying on your back, you might take truly a great deal of time to gather your knees into your chest and roll onto your favorite side, and maybe pausing there for a while before coming towards a seat. Taking this time to consider the many circumstances involved in your yoga practice, the evolution of your body over many ages, the ecology of the earth and the cosmos and the bang of the universe that created all of it. You might consider the teachers, useful and unuseful in your particular life and in the lineage before. You might consider the lineage of yoga. You might consider the land you stand on, who occupies it now, and who stewarded it originally, and what your responsibilities are as such. You might consider the networks and communities and cared for ones that support your work of liberation. And of course, consider gratitude for yourself. It's always courageous work to show up and turn towards the truth of what is, how things really are in real time. And, if you haven't yet drawn yourself to a seat, draw yourself slowly there, or find a way to seal your practice that suits you. You could fold your hands in the prayer position. This Anjali Mudra or gesture is really about non-dualism. So you might hold in the eye of your mind that idea as well, or instead of folding your hands, that things that seem disparate or opposite, like right and left, sun and moon, night and day, beginning and end, you and all the things you perceive as not you, have a meeting place on the network of everything where they become one. Thank you for your time, your energy, your effort. If you wish, you might bring your thumbs to the center of your brow and bow down to yourself, and in honor of those who practiced liberation in the years before and the lifetimes before us. All right, thank you for utilizing this resource. Again, my name is Alyssa. Use they, them pronouns. All the information about, where all this goes and what it's all about is always written down there. Remember always that the teachings are freely given, but if you have ways to support, means to support, just check out those pathways, etc. And always, if you have questions or feedback, feel free to reach out to me. Otherwise, I hope you are well and that you get to have some good seasonal experiences. Maybe not the sun shining in your face, but the wind moving through your hair, across your shoulders, or something like that, until the next time that we see each other soon. Be well, and thank you.